Essay number 6. Carl Gustav Jung and the Symbolic Language of Music. How Music Speaks to the Unconscious Mind. Introduction. Music has accompanied humanity since the dawn of civilization. Long before the written word, people gathered around fires, marked the rhythm of their footsteps, sang to their children, celebrated life's milestones, and expressed grief through melody. Music became one of humanity's earliest languages, not because it explained the world, but because it helped people experience it. Even today, a melody can awaken memories we believed were long forgotten. A simple sequence of notes may bring unexpected comfort, stir deep emotions, or evoke images that seem impossible to describe in words. Why does this happen? Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung devoted much of his life to exploring the hidden dimensions of the human mind. He believed that beneath our everyday awareness lies a vast inner world, shaped not only by personal experience, but also by universal patterns that have accompanied humanity throughout history. Although Jung wrote very little specifically about music, many of his ideas offer a fascinating perspective on why music can feel so deeply meaningful. Like dreams, myths, and great works of art, music often speaks in the language of symbols rather than explanations. It reaches parts of the psyche that words alone cannot always reach. This essay explores the meeting point between Jungian psychology and the symbolic power of music. It is not intended as a scientific explanation of every musical experience, nor as a therapeutic guide. Instead, it is an invitation to reflect on how music may help us listen more carefully, not only to the sounds around us, but also to the quiet, often overlooked world within. Chapter 1. Music before words. Long before humanity developed written language, music was already part of human experience. The steady rhythm of footsteps, the sound of rain, the beating of the heart, and the comforting voice of a mother singing to her child all formed an early language that required no words. Long before people learned to explain the world, they learned to feel it. Anthropologists and archaeologists have found evidence suggesting that music has accompanied human societies for tens of thousands of years. Ancient flutes carved from bird bones and mammoth ivory, discovered in Europe and dating back more than 35,000 years, remind us that music is among humanity's oldest forms of expression. From an evolutionary perspective, music may have strengthened social bonds, coordinated collective activities, and provided comfort during times of uncertainty. Even today, people across every culture sing at celebrations, funerals, religious ceremonies, and moments of personal reflection. While musical traditions differ greatly, the human impulse to create and respond to music appears to be universal. Modern neuroscience offers further insight into this remarkable phenomenon. Listening to music engages multiple regions of the brain simultaneously, including areas involved in emotion, memory, attention, movement, and reward. Unlike spoken language, which primarily communicates through concepts and definitions, music often communicates through patterns, rhythm, tone, and emotional expression. This may explain why a familiar melody can sometimes awaken memories that have remained hidden for many years. A single musical phrase may evoke joy, longing, gratitude, or even sorrow before we have time to understand why. Perhaps music reaches parts of our experience that existed long before language itself. This idea fascinated many thinkers throughout history, including Carl Gustav Jung. Although he did not develop a formal theory of music, his understanding of symbols and the unconscious offers an intriguing perspective on why music can move us so deeply. Music rarely explains. Instead, it invites us to experience. And perhaps that is precisely where its symbolic language begins. Chapter 2. Jung and the Language of Symbols. Carl Gustav Jung believed that symbols are among the most profound expressions of the human mind. Unlike ordinary signs, which have a clear and specific meaning, symbols point beyond themselves. They suggest rather than define. A national flag represents a country, and a mathematical sign conveys a precise operation. A symbol, however, cannot be fully explained by a single definition. its meaning remains alive, inviting continuous reflection and personal discovery. For Jung, symbols emerged naturally from the unconscious. They appeared in dreams, myths, religious traditions, works of art, and countless aspects of human culture. Rather than being invented deliberately, many symbols seem to arise spontaneously from the deeper layers of the psyche. This understanding led Jung to one of his most influential ideas, the existence of the collective unconscious. He proposed that beneath our personal memories lies a deeper psychological dimension shared by all human beings. This collective unconscious is not a collection of learned ideas or inherited memories. Instead, it consists of universal patterns of experience that Jung called archetypes. Archetypes are not fixed images, but underlying patterns that shape the way people experience life. They appear across cultures in different forms, yet often express remarkably similar themes. The caring mother, the wise elder, the courageous hero, the innocent child, the journey, the shadow, and the search for transformation can all be understood as examples of archetypal patterns. Whether they appear in ancient myths, sacred texts, literature, dreams, or modern films, these recurring themes continue to resonate because they reflect something deeply human. Music often shares this symbolic quality. Unlike spoken language, music rarely tells us exactly what it means. The same melody may evoke hope in one person, nostalgia in another, and quiet contemplation in someone else. Rather than delivering a fixed message, music creates a space in which personal meaning can emerge. From a Jungian perspective, this openness is not a weakness, but one of music's greatest strengths. A musical experience may become symbolic because it gently touches emotions, memories, and inner images that are difficult to express through ordinary language. In this sense, music resembles a dream. It does not present logical arguments, yet it can reveal something meaningful about our inner world. Jung often encouraged his patients to pay attention to dreams, fantasies, artistic images, and spontaneous creative expressions. Not because these experiences predicted the future, but because they could illuminate aspects of the personality that remained outside conscious awareness. Music may serve a similar function, not by providing answers, but by helping us ask deeper questions. Perhaps this is why certain melodies remain with us for years. They become part of our personal story, accompanying moments of joy, loss, hope, and transformation. Over time, they cease to be merely compositions of notes and rhythms. They become living symbols woven into the fabric of our own lives. Chapter 3. Why Music Speaks Without Words. One of the most remarkable qualities of music is that it communicates without relying on words. A melody has no dictionary. A rhythm carries no fixed definition. Yet music can express tenderness, longing, courage, sorrow, serenity, or joy with extraordinary depth. It often reaches us before we have had time to analyze what we are hearing. Why does this happen? Modern neuroscience suggests that music engages many parts of the brain at the same time. Emotional processing, memory, attention, movement, and expectation all become active during musical experience. Rather than following a single pathway, music creates a rich network of activity that allows thoughts, feelings, and memories to interact in complex ways. This may explain why music often evokes deeply personal experiences. A melody heard many years ago may suddenly bring back the atmosphere of a childhood home. A familiar harmony may remind us of someone we have loved. Sometimes, we cannot explain why a particular piece moves us so profoundly. We simply recognize that it does. Carl Gustav Jung might have described such moments differently. Rather than asking only what a melody sounds like, he might also have asked what it means to the individual who hears it. For Jung, the inner world was filled with symbols that could not always be translated into ordinary language. Dreams, myths, paintings, and religious imagery often revealed aspects of the psyche that logical thinking alone could not express. Music shares this unique quality. Instead of presenting concepts, it creates experiences. Instead of offering conclusions, it opens possibilities. A single melody may accompany someone through grief, while inspiring hope in another person. The notes themselves remain unchanged, but the meaning emerges through the encounter between the music and the listener's inner world. This reminds us that music is not simply something we hear. It is also something we experience. Jung believed that psychological growth often begins when we become willing to listen to what lies beneath the surface of everyday awareness. Music may gently support this process, not by revealing hidden truths automatically, but by creating a space in which reflection becomes possible. Perhaps this is one reason why moments of quiet listening can feel so meaningful. Without speaking a single word, music may encourage us to slow down, notice our emotions, and become more attentive to our inner lives. Its language is neither logical nor irrational. It is symbolic, and symbols rarely tell us what to think. Instead, they invite us to discover meaning for ourselves. Chapter 4. The harmonium as a contemplative instrument. Throughout history, every culture has developed instruments capable of expressing the full spectrum of human emotion. Some are energetic and rhythmic. Others are powerful and dramatic. Some invite movement, while others encourage stillness. The harmonium belongs naturally to the latter. Its sustained tones create a continuous soundscape that unfolds gradually, inviting the listener to slow down rather than to hurry forward. Unlike instruments built upon rapid virtuosity or dramatic contrasts, the harmonium often supports a quiet atmosphere in which each note has space to breathe. Perhaps this is why it has found a place in many contemplative traditions. Whether accompanying devotional singing, meditation, or moments of silent reflection, the harmonium rarely demands attention for itself. Instead, it gently supports the experience, allowing music to become a companion rather than a performance. From a psychological perspective, this quality is especially interesting. Contemplative music often reduces the constant flow of external stimulation that fills everyday life. Without eliminating thought, it may encourage a quieter form of awareness in which emotions, memories, and inner reflections can arise more naturally. Carl Gustav Jung frequently emphasized the importance of creating space for dialogue with one's inner world. Although he did not write specifically about the harmonium, he recognized that artistic expression, imagination, dreams, and moments of quiet reflection could help individuals become more aware of aspects of themselves that usually remained outside conscious attention. In this sense, the harmonium can be understood not merely as a musical instrument, but as a gentle companion for contemplation. Its purpose is not to impress. Its purpose is to accompany. Its continuous sound neither forces interpretation nor dictates emotion. Instead, it offers a stable musical presence within which each listener remains free to experience the music in a deeply personal way. For some, this experience may evoke peace. For others, gratitude. For others still, memories, questions, or quiet moments of self-discovery. The instrument itself provides no answers. It simply creates an environment in which listening becomes possible. Perhaps this is one of music's greatest gifts. Not that it speaks louder than words, but that it teaches us how to listen beyond them. Chapter 5. Listening to the inner world. Carl Gustav Jung believed that one of life's greatest challenges is not simply to understand the world around us, but to become more deeply acquainted with the world within. Modern life often encourages constant activity. We move quickly from one task to another, surrounded by information, expectations, and endless distractions. In such an environment, moments of genuine silence have become increasingly rare. Yet silence is not empty. It is often within silence that we begin to hear ourselves more clearly. Jung described psychological growth as a lifelong process of becoming more fully oneself. He called this process individuation, not as a journey toward perfection, but as a gradual integration of the many different aspects of our personality into a more balanced and authentic whole. This journey requires patience. It also requires listening, not only to our thoughts, but also to our emotions, our dreams, our creativity, and the quiet intuitions that often remain unnoticed amid the noise of everyday life. Music can become a gentle companion on this journey. Unlike conversation, music does not ask us to defend our opinions. Unlike argument, it does not require us to prove that we are right. Instead, it offers something increasingly precious in today's world: the opportunity simply to listen. Sometimes we discover that the music we choose reflects the emotional landscape we are living through. At other times, a melody introduces us to feelings we had not yet recognized within ourselves. Neither experience needs to be analyzed immediately. Sometimes it is enough simply to notice. Jung often reminded us that meaningful psychological change begins with awareness. Before we can understand ourselves, we must first become willing to observe ourselves with honesty and compassion. Music may gently support this attitude, not because it possesses mysterious powers, not because every musical experience carries hidden symbolic meaning, but because attentive listening naturally invites attentive living. When we learn to listen carefully to music, we may also begin to listen more carefully to ourselves. And perhaps that is where the deepest transformation quietly begins, not in extraordinary experiences, but in ordinary moments of presence. Conclusion: music has always been more than organized sound. Across cultures and throughout history, it has accompanied humanity in moments of celebration, mourning, prayer, reflection, and hope. Long before people could explain the mysteries of the human mind, they already understood that music could express something words often could not. Carl Gustav Jung devoted his life to exploring the symbolic dimensions of human experience. He recognized that dreams, myths, religious traditions, and works of art often reveal aspects of ourselves that remain hidden from ordinary awareness. Although music occupied only a small place in his writings, his understanding of symbols offers a valuable perspective on why musical experiences can feel so deeply meaningful. Modern psychology and neuroscience approach these questions from different directions, yet they arrive at a complementary insight. Music engages emotion, memory, attention, and imagination in ways that make personal reflection both natural and deeply human. It does not provide universal answers, nor does it speak with a single voice. Instead, each listener encounters music through the unique landscape of his or her own life. Perhaps this is why the same melody can become a source of comfort for one person, inspiration for another, and quiet contemplation for someone else. The symbolic language of music does not ask us to choose between science and imagination, reason and emotion, psychology and art. Instead, it reminds us that understanding ourselves often requires all of these. Listening carefully to music may not solve life's greatest questions, but it may help us become more attentive to the questions themselves. And sometimes, that is where wisdom begins. Final reflection: there are moments when words reach their limit. Beyond that point, music continues. Not because it possesses magical answers, but because it allows us to remain present with experiences that cannot always be explained. Carl Gustav Jung once observed that much of what shapes our lives exists beneath the surface of conscious awareness. Music gently reminds us of the same truth. A melody cannot tell us who we are. It cannot choose our path or make our decisions. Yet it can accompany us while we search. Perhaps every meaningful journey begins with listening. Listening to another person. Listening to nature. Listening to silence. Listening to ourselves. And perhaps the symbolic language of music is not a language that seeks to explain the mystery of being human. Perhaps it simply invites us to live that mystery with greater awareness, greater compassion, and greater openness. Because in the end, the deepest melodies are not only those we hear. They are also those we gradually discover within ourselves. Last thought: music does not tell us what to think. It invites us to listen. And sometimes, in the quiet space between two notes, we hear not only the music, but something of ourselves. End of essay number 6.